My wife slept with her boss, convinced me to buy her a $150, $0 house, then stole half our $300, $0 inheritance and is now fighting me in court over the property. Everything's turned into a nightmare I never saw coming. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Honestly, I thought I knew my wife. We had our ups and downs, sure, but nothing prepared me for the bombshell that would blow up everything I thought was real. It all started with small signs, her being distant, secretive calls, late nights that turned into more frequent disappearances. Nothing concrete, just enough to make me uneasy. But I brushed it off, convinced she was stressed or busy with work. I mean, she's a high-powered executive, always busy, always on her phone. I tried to give her space, tell myself I was overreacting. Then came the day I saw her phone light up with a message from Mike. At 2 a.m. the message was simple. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Love you." I froze. My stomach sank. I knew that name. Mike was her boss who I'd always suspected had a bit too much influence over her. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but something about that message didn't sit right. I waited until she was asleep, then snuck into her room to check her phone. The message was still there, and her recent texts with Mike were full of flirtation, suggestive comments, and plans that clearly weren't about work. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the message, trying to convince myself I was overreacting. But deep down, I knew I'd uncovered something huge. The next day I decided to follow her. I didn't want to jump to accusations, but I needed to see if she was hiding something. I followed her to a fancy hotel downtown where she stayed for hours. When she finally came out, her face was flushed and she looked around nervously. I saw her get into a car with a man, someone I didn't recognize at first, but as they pulled away, I caught a glimpse of Mike's face in the mirror. My heart was pounding. That's when I knew for sure was cheating on me. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All the little signs, the late nights, the secretive texts, the nervousness, it all added up. But what cut deeper was the realization that she'd been lying about everything. She'd been convincing me to buy her a $150, $0 house, telling me how much she loved me, how she wanted to build a life together. Meanwhile, she was sleeping with her boss, probably for months. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a full-blown attack on everything I believed in. I didn't confront her right away. I needed time to process, to think about what to do. But the anger started to build inside me, simmering beneath the surface. How could she do this? How could she lie to my face, steal from our family, our inheritance, and then turn around and fight me over the property? I found out that she'd already taken half of our $300, $0 inheritance, and she was trying to use the court to keep everything. The house, the money, everything. She was playing dirty, and I was left standing there, feeling betrayed, humiliated, and furious. I never saw this coming. I thought we had a decent life. I thought she loved me, but it was all a lie. I was just a pawn in her game. I had poured myself into this marriage, worked hard to give her a good life, and she repaid me with lies, betrayal, and theft. I don't even know how I'm supposed to move forward from this. I'm lost, angry, and trying to figure out what's next. After I saw her coming out of that hotel with Mike, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind was racing a million miles an hour. I kept replaying that night over and over, trying to find some way to make sense of it all. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? I thought about all the times she'd told me she loved me, how she'd convinced me to buy that house, our dream home, so she could have her perfect life. Meanwhile, she was out cheating on me, probably for months, with her boss of all people. I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. The next morning, I sat her down in the living room. She was still half asleep, her hair a mess, eyes avoiding mine. I looked her straight in the eyes and asked, "Who is Mike? How long has this been going on?" Her face twisted into a defensive sneer. "What are you talking about? You're crazy. I don't know what you're implying." I clenched my fists. "Don't lie to me. I saw the messages. You've been sleeping with your boss. Tell me the truth." She scoffed. "Oh, so now I'm a cheat, please. You're so paranoid. Maybe you're the one who's been distant, not me." I couldn't believe her. She was spinning this story so fast I almost wondered if she believed it herself. I told her I had proof, her hotel stay, the texts, but she just rolled her eyes, said I was overreacting, that I was jealous and insecure. That was her usual line, deny everything, make me doubt myself. She insisted she was working late, stressed, that I was imagining things. She said she loved me and that I was being ridiculous, but I knew better. I knew what I'd seen. I felt a mixture of anger and heartbreak. I'd given her everything, my love, my trust, our savings, and this is how she repaid me. I was furious, but I also felt crushed. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this after all we'd been through? I started digging into her phone, her emails, anything I could find. I needed more proof. That's when I stumbled across something even worse. She had been convincing me to buy her that house 150, I barely had, telling me it was our future, our dream. Meanwhile, she was secretly funneling money into her own accounts, stealing half of our inheritance. I found bank statements showing transfers to her name, and I realized she'd been planning this for months. The betrayal was staggering. Not only had she cheated on me, but she'd also stolen from us, lied every step of the way. I felt sick. My trust was shattered. I started to see her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd been using me the entire time. I was furious at myself for not seeing it sooner, for trusting her so blindly. I decided I had to play it smart. I couldn't just blow up and lose everything. I needed a plan, something calculated, something that would hit her where it hurts. I wanted her to feel the pain of betrayal, to see her lose everything she'd gained through her lies and cheating. I knew I had to be careful because she was already fighting me over the property, claiming she deserved everything because she was the victim. That's when I realized this was just the beginning of a long, ugly battle. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to fall into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. After confronting and seeing her spin her lies, I knew I couldn't just let her get away with everything. The more I dug into her financials, the more I realized how deep her deception went. She had already spent a good chunk of the inheritance, half of it actually, and was trying to lay claim to the house, claiming she deserved it because she was the one living there. That's when I decided I needed to get serious. I started talking to a lawyer, figuring out my options. I had to protect what was mine, what we'd worked for. But even as I did that, I was feeling a mix of anger and helplessness. How did I let it get this far? How did I not see the signs earlier? The lawyer told me I had a solid case to fight her over the inheritance and the house, especially since I could prove she'd been secretly funneling money out of our joint accounts. She was trying to paint herself as the victim, but I had the receipts, the bank statements, the texts, everything. I spent days gathering evidence, feeling like I was in some kind of legal war zone. Meanwhile, kept up her act, acting like she was the wronged wife, crying fake tears, playing the victim in court. She insisted she loved me, that I was paranoid, that she had no idea about any affair. It was all a lie. I knew it. One night, I decided I couldn't just sit around waiting anymore. I needed to see her reaction if I made a move. So I told her I was planning to file for divorce, to fight her over the property and the money. Her face twisted into a sneer. You're just bitter because I don't want to stay married to a man who doesn't trust me. She said I was overreacting, that I was jealous, insecure, that I was making everything up. But I knew better. I knew I had to be strategic because she was already planning her next move. I started to set traps, subtle things that would prove her lies in court. I installed a hidden camera in the living room, nothing overt, just enough to catch her talking to her friends or even her boss if she tried to spin another story. I also contacted some of her friends, subtly asking about her recent behavior. Turns out she'd been bragging about her new life, how she was finally free from me, how she was going to get everything she wanted. It was all part of her plan to manipulate the court and her friends into thinking she was the victim. I felt a mix of rage and sadness, knowing she'd lied to everyone, including her own friends. Meanwhile, she kept up the act of being innocent, even as I had the evidence mounting against her. She'd tell me she was trying to fix things, that she still loved me, but I didn't buy it anymore. I saw through her. I saw the way she looked at Mike, the way she lied about her whereabouts, the way she'd stolen money from our savings. I knew she'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that she was a master manipulator, willing to do anything to get what she wanted: money, power, freedom from me. This whole experience was tearing me apart. I'd trusted her with everything. I had worked so hard to build a life, and now I was fighting just to keep what was left. The emotional toll was insane. I'd go from furious to broken in a matter of minutes. Sometimes I'd lie awake at night, wondering how I missed all the signs, how I could have been so blind. I kept asking myself if I should even try to salvage the marriage, or if I should just cut my losses and move on. But deep down, I knew I had to fight for what was rightfully mine, what we'd built together. I wasn't going to let her steal my life without a fight. By now, I'd been playing this game for weeks. Every day brought a new revelation, a new lie exposed, a new reason to hate what she'd turned into. Was relentless in her attempts to manipulate the situation. She'd come up with excuses, cry fake tears, try to turn the court against me. She claimed she was the victim, that I was paranoid and controlling, but I had enough evidence to drown those lies. The hidden camera caught her talking on the phone with Mike, planning their secret meetings. The bank statements proved she'd siphoned off half our inheritance into accounts only she knew about. It was clear she'd been planning her escape, her new life, for a long time. I knew I had to act fast. The court date was set, and I had to prepare myself for the fight of my life. I hired a forensic accountant to trace every penny she'd stolen. I had the evidence ready: screenshots, bank statements, witness statements. I even got a few of her friends to testify about her recent behavior, how she'd been distant, secretive, obsessed with her new life. It was brutal, but I knew I had to be ruthless if I wanted to keep what was mine. One night, I confronted her directly. I told her I knew everything about the affair, the theft, the lies. I told her I was filing for full custody of the house and the inheritance, and that she'd have to answer for her actions. She stormed into my face, yelling, "You're just jealous. You're insecure. You think I don't deserve this life because I want more. You're just a loser who can't keep up." She was screaming, crying, throwing accusations, but I just stood there, calm and collected. I'd already made up my mind. I was done playing nice. That's when she snapped. She accused me of trying to ruin her, of being a controlling husband who didn't appreciate her. She said I was trying to take everything from her because I was insecure and jealous of her success. I could see the venom in her eyes, the desperation to hold onto her lies, her money, her new life. I realized then that she wasn't going to stop until she got what she wanted, until she'd stolen every last penny, every last piece of our life together. I decided to turn the tables. I told her she could keep the house if she signed a legal agreement relinquishing any claim to the inheritance, the savings, everything. I was prepared to fight in court for full control, and I told her I'd do whatever it takes. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to understand that her lies and cheating had consequences. I couldn't let her walk away with everything, not after what she'd done. The look in her eyes told me she knew she'd been caught, but she was determined to fight back. That's when I realized this wasn't over. Not even close. The next day, I filed all the paperwork. I was ready for the courtroom battle. Meanwhile, I kept gathering evidence, talking to friends, and preparing myself emotionally. I felt exhausted, betrayed, but also oddly relieved that I was finally taking control of the situation. After all, I'd been the one trying to hold everything together: my marriage, our future, our finances, and now it was time to fight for what was rightfully mine. I knew deep down I'd probably never get back the trust I'd lost, but I wasn't going to let her ruin me completely. Not without a fight. The courtroom battle was the most draining thing I've ever been through. Showed up, her face painted with fake tears and a look of righteous indignation. She played the victim well, crying about how she was forced into a corner, how I was controlling, how she only cheated because she felt neglected. Meanwhile, her lawyer was spinning stories about how she was the innocent wife betrayed by my insecurities. I sat there, seething, knowing the truth. She'd lied, cheated, stolen, and manipulated her way into her own version of victory. At least, that's what she wanted everyone to see. Every day in court, I presented the evidence I'd collected. The bank statements, the texts, the hidden camera footage. I could see her squirming under cross-examination. Her stories kept changing, her excuses getting more desperate. She claimed she only loved Mike, that everything else was a mistake, a lapse in judgment, but I knew better. I knew she'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. She convinced herself that she was entitled to a new life, that I was too controlling, too dull, too boring. That's why she cheated and stole. The judge listened carefully as I laid out everything. I could feel her eyes narrowing, trying to gauge whether I was telling the truth. I saw her lawyer try to make me look paranoid, insecure, jealous, like I was just an overreacting husband. But I had the evidence. It was irrefutable, when it was. Her turn to speak, through everything she had, fake tears, accusations, pleas for mercy. She claimed she'd changed, that she was sorry, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I saw through her act. Finally, after days of testimony, the judge made a decision. She awarded me full control of the house and the remaining inheritance, was ordered to pay back the stolen money, and she was any claim to the property. It was a huge relief, but also a bitter pill to swallow. I'd fought so hard to keep what was mine, and even then I knew the damage was done. Trust was shattered beyond repair. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by a manipulative, selfish stranger. After the court was furious. She yelled, called me all sorts of names, and stormed out. I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I'd won the legal battle, but the emotional scars ran deep. I knew I had to move on, to rebuild my life without her. I spent the next few weeks sorting out the legal mess, dealing with the fallout, and trying to come to terms with what had happened. I was angry, betrayed, exhausted, but I also felt a strange sense of closure. I finally had clarity on what she was capable of, what she'd done, and now I could start to heal. Looking back, I realized how naive I was to trust so blindly. I gave her everything, and she threw it all away for someone else, for money, for some illusion of a better life. I learned that sometimes the people closest to you can hurt you the most. I don't regret fighting for my rights, but I do regret not seeing the signs sooner. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone reading this, it's to trust your instincts. Be careful with your heart, your money, your future. Because sometimes the biggest betrayals come from the people you love the most. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything, I realize how much I've been through. The betrayal, the legal fights, the endless nights of doubt and anger, they've all taken a toll. But more than anything, I've learned a hard lesson about trust and how fragile it can be. I thought I knew. I thought she was my partner, my best friend. Turns out she was just playing a part, one that ended with her betraying me, stealing from us, and trying to rewrite our story. The worst part is the aftermath. I've had to rebuild my life from scratch, piece by piece. The house is now legally mine, and I've started the long process of healing. I've cut ties with her completely, realizing that some people aren't worth the pain they cause. I've also become more cautious, more aware of the signs I missed, and more determined never to let someone manipulate me like that again. Despite all the heartbreak, I'm grateful I fought back. I'm grateful I didn't let her walk away with everything. I feel stronger now, even if my trust has been broken. I've learned to value my own judgment more, to listen to that little voice inside telling me something's wrong. And I want others to know, if you're ever in a situation where you suspect betrayal, don't ignore it. Get the proof. Fight for what's yours. Because in the end, no one's coming to save you. You have to stand up for yourself. I don't hold any illusions about love anymore. I know now that sometimes the people you trust the most can hurt you the deepest. But I also know that you can come out stronger. You just have to be willing to face the truth, no matter how ugly it is. I hope my story serves as a warning about honesty, about money, about the people you let into your life. Because betrayal can come from anywhere, and when it does, you need to be ready to fight for what's rightfully yours.